Hello, welcome to my diary. I'm Tatami. Here I talk about whatever I want to. And today I really wanted to address something that I keep seeing being commented in written places, which is this idea that the only people still practicing the one drop rule are Black people. This sentence implies that white people don't care about race anymore, that they're not adhering to it, that they're not segregating accordingly with it. It implies that perhaps little biracial children are running around white neighborhoods being seen as white. And I feel like if we just give it a little thought and put a little common sense to this, we can see easily that indeed white people are upholding the one drop rule as firmly as ever. The difference is, well, one, they don't call it the one drop rule anymore. They just do it kind of unconsciously. You're either them or you're another that needs to be labeled and identified. And so they do this with all people of mixtures. It doesn't matter if you're mixed with something that can still classify as white, but perhaps makes you tan a little more. Or it doesn't matter if you're half Asian, half South American, half Black, half African. It really doesn't matter what you're half of. The white community is absolutely not accepting people who have any appearance of mixture within them. It's just not happening. So, there's this idea that Black people have always had to accept. They've always had to welcome in biracial people, multiracial people, quadroons all the way up till, right? The octoroons all the way up until. And so because of this acceptance, there's an idea that, and first of all, I totally agree with that. Due to our unique circumstances as a people, there has been way more acceptance generally of biracial, multiracial, mixed with Black people than with other communities. And this is generally because of trauma that we all commonly experience, colorism, racism that we all experience. So when we see each other, especially in the previous generations, it was something to be able to look into someone else's eyes and see them and say I see you, give that nod of I see you, and have it be something that both parties recognized in each other. It was a powerful thing to have. So that's, there's no knocking what that was, what the history behind it was. And the history behind the white community is one of rejection, right? They use the one drop rule as a firm line of rejection. You're out. Whereas the Black community historically has used it as one drop and you're in, or that explains insert whatever, feature that we're proud of that this person contains. So, so basically what I'm trying to say is that essentially with this statement of Black people are the only ones who don't adhere to they're the only ones who do still adhere to the one drop rule and they should stop, is essentially they're not being really asked to stop. They're being asked more so to adhere to the one drop rule in the same way that white people do, as a way of rejection, not as a way of acceptance, which is, again, personal choice of people. But I did think it was really interesting that it was almost like a way of burdening Black people. Like, first of all, we didn't get up with this. Second of all, we don't hold the power structure here. So, there's a whole conversation to be had, with dark-skinned people feeling erased, and with lighter-skinned Black people calling themselves Black. And that is a very serious conversation that does need to be addressed. But at the same time, there does need to be addressed, what really is going on here, which is a situation of looking to deny biracial people in the same way that white people denied biracial people. And so it's not really something that should be burdened onto the Black community, again, in a sense of an opposite burden of like, we're the only ones upholding archaic law, when we're not. They absolutely, the white community is still segregated. As how they're living in these white suburbs that aren't as affected by COVID is the fact that they are still segregated, still upholding these laws that allow them to have these segregated neighborhoods, that allow them to differentiate between people. So when having these conversations, I definitely think it's important to stray away from language that kind of implies an innocence about the white community that just really isn't there. Anybody who grows up biracial in the white community knows that they are the epitome of whatever that race is, non-white race is in that community. They see you as that other race. They see you as Chinese. They see you as Black. They see you as Mexican. And there's not really middle ground for most, if not all white people, especially the ones in power, typically don't really differentiate. So it's kind of, erroneous to say that only Black people are still adhering to this archaic law, when in fact, white people are still very much adhering to it. They're still sticking to it. It's kind of their code of law still. There's no differentiation between people. If you pass as white and there's no evidence otherwise, they'll treat you as white. But otherwise, you'll be asked straight up to your face, what are you? To get some kind of clarification, because it makes them uncomfortable and they need to label it somehow. If they don't know what it is, they need to label it. Even if it's just like they see you dressed some type of strange way on the street, they need to label it. Where are you from? You can't be from here if you're dressed that way. So yeah, that's what today's conversation was about. It's about the fact that yes, Black people, a lot of them still practice the one-drop rule in many different forms, either as a form of acceptance or rejection, but absolutely white people still practice the one-drop rule, and they're the ones with the power, so they're the ones with a lot of the effects that we see around us, and we shouldn't confuse or conflate that with anything other than the one-drop rule being at work and at play. All right, may your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads, and I will see you next video.